May 9th, 2023 work session to order. At this time, Madam Commissioner, would you lead us in the pledge and the motion?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us bow our heads. Our Father, the one who gives us all our blessings, we ask this morning and that you continue to bless our county and the citizens of this county. Lord, we ask that you continue to bless this board and guide us in the right direction and give us the feasibility of making the right decisions for the citizen of this county and for this board. Lord, we ask that you guide our minds and guide us in the right direction. Give us the knowledge, the wisdom, and the patience to be able to make the right decisions. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Okay, the next item up on the agenda, number 3, is the Forest Service annual presentation of budget. Buren, you want to come forward?
All right, good morning. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you today. The North Carolina Forest Service is a division underneath the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. We're a very small agency, but I think we have make some big impacts across the state. I'm going to start off today with a little slide presentation of some of the things that you see in the wilds of Harnett County. Now, this will be a pictures for a county commissioners meeting, not everything that we see in the wilds of Harnett County. But this first one was a old graveyard. We come across those, and this was one I walked up on this past February on the Upper Little River. And I just thought it was neat, to always look back at history and see river rocks used for headstones and the date on that of the person's death of 1886. And if you look underneath that date has a statement, he is not dead, he is sleepeth. And I just thought that was kind of neat to come across. But occasionally we come across some real strange stuff. And this is a picture of some real strange stuff that you can see in the wilds of Harnett County. This is a bicycle that was on a tree about 20 foot in the air. And that just kind of makes you wonder what someone was doing in the woods to hook a bicycle 20 foot up a tree. And then the other one was down in the Anderson Creek community, and that was some type of horse, one of the kids' jumpy things, and it was hanging on a limb. And I thought that was just some of the unusual stuff and some of the stuff that you come across. But occasionally you see some downright scary stuff. And this was one up in the Upper Little River Township that we stumbled upon. Just some real strange stuff every once in a while. I always like to start off with a little bit of forest economics and the forest product industry in North Carolina. The forest product industry in North Carolina is the largest manufacturing industry in the state. Not many people know that. Employs about 70,000 people with a annual payroll of $2.7 million. It's very important to the state, and that's one thing the North Carolina Forest Service does is we try to protect and manage that resource for that industry. Where are all those trees going? If you just sit in Lillington, you can see log trucks going everywhere, and this is just a list of the companies where most of the wood in Harnett County ends up at those mills. And I like to tell people when I'm talking to civics and Ruetan groups and stuff like that across the county that, may just have a house in the county is about the importance of the forest product industry. And I always tell them, I said, you might want to go look at your 401ks or your retirement things that you have. And if you break down those mutual funds that you have, I guarantee you some of them are holding stock in some of these forest product companies that we have in the state of North Carolina. On that forest product front, we have some great economic news this year in the state. There's 2 new sawmills that are coming online in North Carolina. They're a little bit northeast of Raleigh, but those log trucks that you see coming through Lillington, most of them will haul a load of logs anywhere up between 100 to 140 miles from where it's being cut. Benderholzen is a European country that has built a new mill in Halifax County. They've just recently started operations there. I heard last week that they were cutting about 30 loads a day, but once they get everything in line, they should eat about 100 loads of logs a day. Roseburg, which is a big company in the Pacific Northwest, you may have saw the governor a few years ago started talking about them building this mill up above Raleigh, and they're going to be cranking up that mill sometime this fall, and that's another source for these pine logs to go to. So we're real excited about these 2 new forest economic mills that will be in the state. As I said, forest protection and forest management is our 2 big things. Everybody knows us because of my big brown furry friend, Smokey the Bear, and putting out wildfires, but we do have a lot of other threats to our forest here in North Carolina and in Harnett County. Every year that I come and speak to you, I show you this map, and you can kind of see how the colors are filling in from the north and the south. The emerald ash borer, which is the little insect in the top right-hand corner, came into the county in 2021 on the Cape Fear River. It's pretty much spread all over the county now. I found some dead ash trees on the Upper Little River about a month ago. It's going to totally wipe out all the ash trees. There's really nothing we can do about it. We also have the Asian ambrosia beetle that's coming up from South Carolina that's going to be taking out anything in the laurel family. As you can see, the blue is covering Johnston, Sampson, and Cumberland. We probably have that insect in the county right now. We just have not confirmed it yet. There's also some new invasive species that have showed up on the block, and this one is the spotter and lanternfly. If you walk into the ag building in the foyer over there, you'll see a big poster of it. This one came in through the ports in the New Jersey area, and it's a sapsucker, and it feeds on any type of hardwood or grapevine, and last summer it was discovered in Guilford and Forsyth County. One of the big concerns about this is in the grape or wine industry. That's one of their favorite hosts. And in the Piedmont of North Carolina, there is a lot of wineries and vineyards, and that is going to be a major concern. Now, there is some insecticides that will take this bug out, but that is an added expense to that industry, and it's pretty expensive if it gets into your vineyard. The other thing with this, we're trying to let all the citizens know about it. If you look at the adult stage, which is that moth, it is very colorful. It is also attracted to water. So one of the things, we got some magnets that we're giving out to citizens when we speak to them, because you find them in the pool traps at swimming pools. And that can kind of give us an idea, if you see this insect, that this might be an area, because obviously if you've got the adults, you've got the juveniles, which are the ones that feed on the trees. Another invasive species that we are concerned about is the spongy moth. This was formerly known as the gypsy moth. It's been around since the late 80s, early 90s, but obviously I talked about some insects that we can't do much about, but this one, through research, we have been able to kind of control, and that's a good thing with these invasive species. We trap every year. I know yesterday, if you take the back road out of here, going towards the Wendy's, you'll see this little orange trap we have them tied up all around the county, and that attracts the gypsy moth, and that way we can kind of guess what the population is going to be. And we do have a treatment, and this was a little blurb that came out the 1st of April up in western North Carolina, where the Forest Service is going to be treating about 2,000 acres to prevent the gypsy moth. That's not an insecticide. Of course, anytime that you're going to tell the citizens that you're going to be flying over 2,000 acres and spraying something out, it's not an insecticide, it's a pheromone. And what they've discovered is that you can spray this pheromone out over that property, and that confuses the male gypsy moth because he thinks there's females everywhere. And so you prevent them from getting together. And it seems to be pretty effective at controlling the gypsy moth. Now, we do have native pests that we have to deal with. And this is the pine vole. You can look at him there on the left. Kind of looks like a rat. And I don't know if any of you remember the movie back in the 80s, Caddyshack, where Bill Murray was trying to get rid of the gophers on the golf course. Well, if you had went over to Mount Pisgah Church Road this past fall, you would have seen the Forest Service in that same kind of reaction, because we had planted about 50 acres of fields in Longleaf for a landowner, and this pine vole had ate about 25 acres of it. So you can see my hand there holding up where they kind of dig out and they feed on the root system. So we had to come up with a plan to get rid of that pine vole. So we started by burning the fields, which longleaf loves fire. So we burnt the fields. The pine voles live down in the ground, but they have to come out of their holes to feed at night on those young longleaf trees. So what we did is we burned it off, and then we called some of our forest friends, predators, owls and foxes and coyotes, to come and get rid of them. And it was kind of funny. I was talking to one of the adjoining property owners about it, and we had burned on several different days, and I told him what we were doing. And he said, that's kind of funny. He said, for the last 2 weeks, we've been hearing owls out here at night. And I said to myself, I said, yeah, you probably have, because they're so fat they can't fly off very far. So it was kind of neat to see that and try to get control of those pine voles. We had to do some replanting and stuff, but hopefully we've got it under control. But we do have natural native pests, that can affect trees in the county. Last year's fire season, what we're so famous for, Smokey the Bear, there was 188 wildfires in Harnett County that burnt 335 acres. This is an overview picture of the largest fire that we had in the county, the Chicken Parks Fire, which was in Ben Haven. Every year when I come, I try to tell y'all where the largest fire is, and for the second year in a row, it fell with Ben Haven Fire Department. I actually tried to go find another one like a runners-up fire, but that also was in the Ben Haven District 2, which was a 28-acre fire. Anytime that we have fires in the county, we do investigate how they started and try to take the appropriate action. We have a law enforcement branch inside our division that will come in and help us. This is kind of a picture of a fire that occurred in Western Harnett that we had to bring them in to figure out the cause and the origin of that fire with the property damage that occurred. Last year we had 9 fires in the county that was in some type of court case as far as the cause and the determination. This was a fire we had this past fall, and this is How Not to Grill in Western Harnett. And this is the back of a deck, and it's got a Gerber grill on the front of it, and I found it kind of funny. On the side of the house, both of the air conditioning units burn up during the fire, and we kept going back to those air conditioning units trying to figure out, something electrical had started the fire, but everything was pointing up underneath this deck of this house. And that's me standing over there on the other side of it, but you can't really tell from the picture, but you can walk underneath this deck standing up. And we kept going underneath the deck and this, that, and the other, and the landowner or homeowner finally come out, was talking to us, and he said, "Hey, fellas, y'all might want to come look at this." I was underneath that deck. I never looked up to see the hole that the grill had burnt. So the homeowner got really fortunate his whole house didn't burn down that night, because this occurred at night. But you can see where the charcoal fell on the wooden deck, burned a hole, slammed through it, started the woods fire. As far as 2023's fire season, this is kind of sums it up. We've had a very wet spring, but even with the wet spring, we do have some fires. This was the tree stand fire back at the 1st of April. and you can see that tractor is stuck. So things can burn across the top, but as soon as that you break through, you sink out of sight. But so far in 2023, we've had a pretty calm fire season. I always like to look at statistics, and this is just some statistics that's put out every year. And one thing that stood out to me, if you look at the top 5 states with human-caused fires, North Carolina ranks 3 in the country with human-caused fires. The other thing I like to point out at this is in the top 5, 4 of them are southeastern or southern states. Not many people think about that as far as the cause and the amount of fires that occur. And there was 25,000 acres that burned in North Carolina last year with wildfires. When we're out of our fire season here, the Harnett County Forestry staff will assist other state agencies through cooperative agreements. Last year, the staff here in Harnett County fought fire in Texas, Idaho, and in Oregon. We also do a lot of training with our local fire departments. Here's a list of fire departments that received either chainsaw safety or some type of wildland suppression class in 2022. As far as managing our forest, one of the things that we do is active logging inspections. With a lot of this, the new industry that's in the state and the demand on wood products, last year our staff here in Harnett inspected 66 active logging inspections in the county. We also write tax plans for the PUV program, the present use value. I always like to say this is what keeps us at our desk. Over in the ag building, we wrote 149 plans for landowners and assisted 242 forest landowners in the county. Why does landowners need that management plan? In the state of North Carolina, if you've got 20 acres of forest land and it's in active forest management, you qualify for a tax deferment. This is this was a tract in Harnett County. The value of that is $4,000 an acre. So the total value was $108,000. The tax bill outside with no PUV would have been $885. If the landowner is growing trees, has a management plan to one day harvest, that tax bill could be reduced 85% to about $136 a year. We do charge for those plans, and the plan would have cost $135. So it's a good tax reduction for landowners who are actively managing their timberland for forestry use. Forest establishment. This is kind of a number. You know, Harnett County is growing and developing, and I kind of find it kind of interesting. Last year, with cost share in 2022, we assisted 45 landowners who planted a little over 1,200 acres of trees. And I kind of look back to see, with growth and development, is our reforestation effort going down? In the last 10 years, we normally plant between 1,200 to 1,700 acres in trees a year. So really that number is holding about steady. So I find that as a good thing. Most of this reforestation, we just handle the paperwork and the cost share for the landowners, but the work is done by private contractors that do the work. I just found it neat. 1,252 acres equals a little over 600,000 new seedlings planted in the county. We've really come advanced on some of the tree genetics that we're planting out there. Here's a tract in Bun Level. This is a 3-year-old third cycle loblolly pine. It is 11 feet tall and 2 inches in diameter in 3 years. That is some really good growth coming out of those trees. And that transfers into another forest economics. This is a tract. This isn't a research plot. This is a tract. If you drive to Western Harnett High School, you pass it on Highway 27. It was a 14-year-old third cycle loblolly pine plantation. We had the first thin. The first thin generated about $300 for that landowner. So when you do that first thin, you're removing 1/3 of the pine trees that are out there, so you have 2/3 left out there. So you can figure in 14 years that piece of property generated $900 an acre worth of wood. So the initial investment for the landowner with cost share was about $108 an acre. If you do the interest on that, that is a 16% rate of return on that investment. So that's a pretty good rate of return. With anything that you invest, there is a risk. And this is a 3-year-old loblolly pine plantation in Bun Level after your neighbor burned some boxes. It does not stand up to fire very well in its first couple years. And Tommy's standing next to the burn up loblolly tree and with the statement, "Can you say court case?" You know, with that. So with the debris burning and the fire getting away. Last year, cost share, there's a lot of different state and federal programs that the Forest Service administers with private landowners. We are brought back to Harnett County landowners about $200,000 in cost share out of these programs, and I think that's a pretty good return. One of the special projects we had last year, we had some leftover trees. So we decided to give those out to the citizens at the end of tree planting season. And they were kind of old trees, but we had a Saturday morning where we got rid of about 700 trees in about 2 hours. I had one report from a landowner. He had got 5 seedlings from us and 3 of them were alive. So after the spring, after they come alive, so pretty good about that. Me and Tim's been talking about it. We're going to try to do another seedling giveaway this coming February with hopefully some fresher trees. Get that survival rate up a little bit. Here in Harnett, we have a Harnett County Forest Landowner Association. We meet normally quarterly, talk about something forestry related, taxes, cost share, that type of thing. The meetings have been very well attended. We have about 45 landowners that are in this association, and really enjoy getting the landowners together and talking forestry. Last year, we received another community wildfire protection grant through the U.S. Forest Service to do some controlled burning at Anderson Creek. We burnt 54 acres last year out there at the park, and there was no charge to the county. The state picked up the bill on that. We have 2 more years that grant is in place to do some controlled burning out there at the park. This is what I call my what a deal page. You know, the county contributes to our budget every year. In 2022, the county contributed $152,000 to our budget, and that gets into that cost share. And for years, I've just always wanted to make sure that we get back to Harnett County what Harnett County gives in. So about $200,000 back to Harnett County landowners, and the county, you know, spend $152,000 on our program. So I kind of call that a good deal when you get that back. This year, 2002, we requested that $152,000. In 2023, we are requesting a little bit more. $164,000 is what we requested this year. That's an increase of about $12,000. And why? And of course, Preston's standing there with his truck with the hood up. That leads into why. In fact, last week we pushed it out of 210 into the Johnson paving parking lot and had to get a lowboy to come pick up that truck. So one of the reasons is we're needing that new engine. And if you remember last year in May, I stood here and said, we need a new truck, a new fire engine, you know, in our fleet. And y'all give us the money to do that, but Ford was not able to meet the contract of the state. We asked Ford to produce 48 trucks, and they could only give us 18. And so we did not get a truck last year. And with that, the county was not billed for that truck. In 2000, I found it kind of funny. In 2022, the cost of that truck was $38,000. The county share was $15,200. In 2023, that cost has went up to $50,000, and I'm sure you're seeing that with other vehicles that the county's purchasing, the increase in the price. And again, the county wasn't billed for that truck because that's the way our budget operates. We bill the county every month for 40% of our operating budget. So here's the breakdown of that increase, that $11,000 increase. The The price difference in the truck is $4,800 from 2022. There's a 2.5% pay increase and a salary adjustment for some of the employees, the 4 employees here in the county. The state health plan increased this year. There was also some money at the legislative level last year that was given for fire equipment maintenance of our dozer that's here in the county that also increased in that $11,000. And again, just explaining our budget, you know, the county doesn't directly give that $164,000 as a lump sum to the North Carolina Forest Service. You are billed monthly based on our expenditures. So if we can't purchase it with state funds, then the county is not billed for that. Future needs, obviously that new pickup truck, not getting it last year kind of hurt, so we want to make sure that we can replace that truck. And then we would also love to put a cover over our tractor plow unit here in the county. It does sit out in the rain, the hauling unit and the dozer, and if you know, with equipment, if you cover it up, it definitely lasts longer. And we try to buy these tractors and hauling units thinking about a 25 to 30 year life cycle. You know, if you're buying a bulldozer on a construction site, you're probably not going to let it last that long, and that's why it's so important to keep it covered. Commissioner Troxler with the Department of Agriculture has decided or says it's very important to cover this. This is a shelter that they put up this past year in Granville County, and I've also been told that in the budget at the state level, there's possibly going to be some money this year that may come down to Harnett County. So I'm just putting that out there. We hope that that will come through so that we can get that unit covered. And with that, as Smokey knows when it's time to go, do y'all have any questions for us? All right. Well, thank you for giving me some time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I do have a question.
Yeah.
If you don't get the money from the state for the cover,
For the cover.
okay, how much does that cover cost?
What they're budgeting is $250,000. And one thing that I didn't say, the purchase of our hauling unit and our tractor and this shelter will be 100% state funded.
Okay.
The dozer purchase that we made in 2022 or 2020, that was about a $300,000 purchase for that tractor, and the state covers that 100%. What they don't cover on the tractor plow unit is like routine maintenance, oil changes, tires, and stuff like that. Like last year, we had a turbo go out on the truck tractor. That's a very expensive item, and the state picked that up 100%. I guess with the cover, the one issue is going to be is we lease space from you at the ag building, and our tractor plow unit sits either at the Ben Haven Park site or sits over here at where the Parks and Rec keeps all their mowers, you know, on y'all's property. And so if that $250,000 does come through, then I mentioned it to Brent back in December when they started talking, hey, you're getting kind of high on the list, and you might want to start laying some groundwork. And that will be something that we'll come back and address once the money is that. We lease a lot of space in a lot of ag buildings, and what I was told is we've put these shelters on different, you know, we're in all 100 counties. So North Carolina Department of Ag, legal, and the county legal can work out that lease agreement. So, but the building itself would be 100% state. We wouldn't be coming to you for that 40%.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Pleasure to put this on next week, the 40%.
Yes.
That's actually part of our budget. Their
Yeah, I know.
allocation is in the budget.
Okay, so you want to just leave it like it is?
You'll approve it once you approve the budget.
Okay, good enough. We don't need an action on it. All right, next item, number 4, discuss the North Carolina Department of Transportation / Public Transportation Division fiscal 2023 Public Transportation Division supplemental grant agreements. Mr. Blevins.
That's a lot, isn't it?
That's a mouthful.
I want to make sure it was on there. So thank you, Mr. Vice. What I was coming here to talk to you guys about is that, as the gentleman was just saying, that you can't get a state contract. So all of last year, we couldn't purchase any vehicles. They promised that we could purchase some this year. So they give us a supplemental. The supplemental is not costing the county any additional funds, but they increased our capital budget by $167,000 to purchase 3 vehicles. But again, the thing was that the state ate the 3.61% match, so the state's doing their match, and it doesn't change anything for us. So it's a real simple agreement. I'm hoping that you all consider put it on the consent agenda and move it forward. It's pretty simple.
Put it on the state agenda. Put it on our agenda next week.
Okay. Lou? Put it on for next week. All right, Mr. Blevins, you're up again with the USDA 2023 Rural Housing Preservation Grant application.
Yes. So let me give you a little background. The last time we applied, honestly, is 2008, and we have an opportunity to apply again. We're not asking for any matching funds. What this program is for is to help to rehabilitate, not complete home repair, but rehabilitate homes in the $10,000 range for very low or low income persons in Harnett County. We know there's a need out there. We have in community development, we have a long list of people asking for help, and so we thought we should at least try to apply for this grant. Again, no match required or asked for from the county. $85,000 total, have over 2 years to do it. And again, we're focusing on very low income to low income. So to give you an indication of, let me make sure I got it here, the very low income for one person in Harnett County is $24,000 a year. So a family of 4 is $35,000. A low income for a one-person home is $39,000. So those numbers have increased quite a bit, and we're following the HUD standard. A family of 4 is $56,000. So I think there's plenty of opportunities, and we're going to focus on stick-built homes that are in need of repair. And again, the repairs are, there's a program that the state has, it's called urgent repair. What we're trying to do is make sure that we do repairs so somebody can live in their home instead of having to find another home. And again, it's going to be a team effort. We've got Department of Social Services working with us, Health Department. We got folks within General Services. It's a pretty simple grant. We've done it before, and it doesn't take long to do. USDA is pretty forgiving. So, and the reason we're coming to the board for this is because there's some papers that have to be signed as part of their pre-application process, as they call it. So, is there any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, but I think I want to applaud you because I really think it's something that's needed here in Harnett County. We have so many senior citizens,
Yes.
very low income,
Yep.
and don't have a way of repairing homes. So to me, I feel like it's catch-22. Helping them helps us.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep. And I will say there's other grants that used to be in the state had for the counties, like community development block grants. They're no longer available. They don't do that anymore. The housing finance grants, the scattered site rehabilitation, it comes every 2 years. We try to get it. Right now we have Triangle J doing it for us, and the reason is because we will never gain the experience that they require. They want us to go out and repair houses ourselves in order to apply for it. But that's the only 2 fundings there is, this HPG and the scattered site for that kind of work.
well, let me ask you, when did they do away with the community block grant? Because my understanding is,
Well, they moved it. I'm sorry. They moved it to really it's conducive to towns where you have blight, you have large properties to clean up, not just one house, but several houses in an area. The ones the county always applied for were scattered site, CDBG, that they don't no longer have that. So it's called, they put money to bring up a whole community, not just scattered. So, and we have tried in the past to find places that had it, and Dunn's done a couple of them, but you've got to really look at a town in order to do it.
So those particular, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm still not understanding that. So you gotta look at say for instance for Littleton, you gotta look at the whole town of Littleton. And those sites have to be within the town limits of of Littleton?
What I'm saying is, it's not so much directed towards towns, it's where you're fixing a whole area.
Oh, okay.
Not just a single house.
I
So I'm saying it's
understand.
conducive to towns because they have compaction,
Yeah.
whereas other places doesn't.
I totally understand that, because
Yeah.
I know this happened a couple of years ago,
Right.
in Dunn.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Dunn,
Yeah.
through the Johnson Lee and Harnett. Yeah. Gotcha.
All right, everybody in, put it on for next week? Okay, thank you.
So thank you.
All right, item number 6, discuss a request to accept Ag Ventures grant for mobile poultry processing equipment. That's a grill, isn't it?
That's a grill. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me this morning. This morning I come before you, we have applied for and been granted the Ag Ventures grant for a total of $8,000 for the purpose of buying some more poultry processing equipment. We currently have one unit, which is together in a trailer. It gets used quite often. It's on the road all the time. Our issue is if a piece of that breaks down, then the people will have chickens and no way to process those. So we have applied for this grant and we received it. And so I'm here this morning to ask you for permission to receive that grant. It does require a 15% match. And what we propose doing is taking money from our fund balance and moving it there in order to buy the trailer in which to set up this additional processing unit. Any questions?
No? Oh, okay, put it on the consent agenda for next week.
And we will have to do a budget amendment to move that money over just as a part of this, so.
Do you want us to do it now, or you talking about?
No, the budget amendment will be part of it will be on Monday's board. So when you approve acceptance of that, you'll also have to approve the budget amendment.
That'll be fine. Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, and item number 7, discuss a resolution requesting NCDOT add Summerlin Drive, Apache Trail, Beautiful Lane, Oak Forest Drive, Navajo Trail, White Cloud in Summerlin and Planters Glen, Golden Oaks Drive, Rice Drive, Wheat Drive, and in Planters Glen to the state's secondary road system. Mr. Sykes?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a mouthful. Good evening, board members. Yes, sir. As you've seen in the past, this is just a requirement from NCDOT that Harnett County commissioners are okay with accepting these roads. These are kind of older roads and older subdivisions into the state system.
And they've met the build-out requirement,
Yes, sir. They have.
so.
Might be 100% built out in those homes. Yes. Perfect timing.
Well,
These are new sites, right? Where houses are being built.
Fairly new. I'd say actually within the last 5 years. So they've probably just become completely built out. And they've just getting around to where either developer has finally finished out the phase and submitted to DOT. Ideally, if you want to start at about 75%, that's when DOT can start doing it.
Okay.
But then sometimes the developer waits for all the construction traffic to, be vacant of the streets. But yes, ma'am, I'd say 5 years, which is probably up.
How far do you go out beyond 5 years?
Well, on overall projects like Serenity, that might be a 10-year build out, but they'll take those streets down in phases.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so usually that's how it works. They'll take it down as each phase gets completed. the developer will go to DOT.
I understand that. Fine.
Okay, put it on the consent agenda for next week.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right. While you're here, develop the services briefing on the following upcoming public hearings?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
you?
Yep, yeah, we have three non-residentials and one residential. Sarah's gonna just walk y'all through real quick the commercials, two on 87, one on 401 North, and then I'll talk about the one on the residential, I think, which is the fourth one.
Hi there. Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Arbor, Harnett County Development Services. As Jay said, I'm here to talk to you about our first three rezoning cases. The first one is a request for rezoning from the RA 30 to commercial. It's located on US 401 North, just north of Ross Club Road and south of the Wake County line. It's about a 17-acre tract of land. It's currently the site of a unoccupied single-family home and a couple accessory structures. Surrounding land uses of the property that are immediately adjacent there are single-family residential uses. However, there are quite a few non-residential uses in close proximity. For utilities, there's public water available. For transportation, there's direct access to US 401. It's a traffic count of about 8,200 daily trips. The zoning district compatibility maps shown there, you can see there are two parcels there in the vicinity that are also zone commercial. Looking down at the land use classification map, you can see where this property is within the medium density residential land use classification. So it's not fully compatible, but there is that employment land use, mixed use land use, to the south. They're close by in the vicinity. It is also anticipated by staff that this area, with our upcoming comprehensive land use plan, is going to become more commercial in the future. There's photos of the site there that have been provided for your review. These photos of US 401. You can see the street view. The site distances are good here for this property. Okay, and so at the May 1st Planning Board hearing, they voted 4-1 to approve the rezoning case. There was one person to speak in opposition for the case with concerns about traffic and environmental concerns using the septic instead of sewer. Are there any questions for staff at this time?
I have questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So you want to change from medium density to, what was you saying?
Well, so the request is to change the zoning from RA 30 to commercial. But what I was talking about when we were looking at the land use map was that the current land use is medium density residential. This is not an application to change the land use. I was just commenting that, as I know you all know, right now we're going through a comprehensive land use. We're going to be working on our comprehensive land use plan, our new one. And so, it's just anticipated that this area is going to be reevaluated and studied as we move through that process. And that we'll likely see a development node like what's shown there to the south, that employment mixed use kind of going up all of 401.
So what are you saying is that you're changing it to commercial, but basically to me it sounds like you're saying you're changing this to build more houses on it. To build houses on this piece of land.
No, so this will be changed from residential to commercial.
From residential to commercial.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So you're gonna be putting commercial stuff on it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I got you now. I didn't quite understand what you were saying, the way you were putting it.
Could be worse, could be a
It's
Dollar
in,
General.
yeah, I'm sorry. Let me one more question. It's a lot of traffic there in that area.
The traffic,
Yeah. So what are you
8,200.
gonna do about the traffic?
Oh, well, so I mean, as far as the traffic goes, of course, that's going to be, evaluated by NCDOT when, once this goes to the site plan, to its technical review.
Oh, it's a lot of traffic. I mean, going through there in the evening from 3 to 5 or 6 o'clock, you can't even have a turn left. I've been in there, I've been out there, and I know what it's like. It's awful.
If I could, real quick, let me elaborate a little bit on this area. We do have a large, well, number one, there's a large subdivision, Serenity. A lot of folks have heard of that.
Yeah,
It's going
Serenity.
there just south of that,
I understand
where that
that.
intersection comes together. There is a planned stoplight for that. As far as traffic concerned, there's a planned stoplight or at that particular intersection, which is just south of where this project would be. And like Ms. Harper said, during the site plan review process for the subdivision as a whole, they'll have to get a driveway permit from NCDOT. So based on the type of use, obviously commercial, that they're going to use, they will have to evaluate the stoplight that I mentioned, as well as 401 and the amount of current traffic and the amount of possible traffic that can come. And then that developer at that point would have to do those traffic improvements to 401 to help with any traffic concerns that DOT would have. So I agree. 401's, we've been harping on it for years that it needs to be 4 lanes, and this is just part of that process. It's a heavily used road, and it's going to continue to be.
And it's terrible right now. I know they proposed a traffic light there, but in part of the area, they had started trying to put up a traffic light, but something happened in that the process just stopped, so.
I know that when they get, I can't quote it just off the top of my head, but whenever they get to a certain number of units built in Serenity, that's when those phases where the traffic light will happen along 401, and that improvement to that intersection will happen. I also think DOT's got another improvement.
DOT has an improvement at Rawls Church.
Exactly.
And we should hear about, if that's gonna be funded, we should hear that any day now.
Yeah. I spoke to the engineer the other day who said that was, so you're gonna have, DOT's gonna have some major intersection improvements along.
They're gonna have to.
Close to that area. Coming soon.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I
That's
don't
my
know if they help
concern.
anything, but those are things that kind of are around and coming.
As far as the improvement where Piney Grove Wilburn comes into 401, that's not an imminent change. I think they have quite a bit of time down towards build out, actually, before they have to put that stoplight up.
I don't see that. I'll be honest with you, because I travel that road a lot. And there is a lot of traffic on that road right now, and they have accidents right there. That intersection getting on 401. You're talking about 800 units, not even a half a mile from there. So, but there's nothing I can do about it. But I want to make notice to what it's like. It's awful, and they build all those other units on there, on that highway. Rawls Church Road is building homes on there too, right? Am I right or am I wrong?
There's all kinds of, matter of fact, there's another one coming up after the case that Jay has, be on 401 as well. Serenity's obviously the
Big issue.
The big driver in this particular area. But
Yeah.
there's development between 401 and 210, all up and down, which that's one of our main road corridors for the county.
Okay. But I'm not going to argue the fact you want to change it to commercial. But I know what it's going to create. It's going to create a real problem. Thank you.
Okay, so if, does any other commissioners have any questions about the last one? Okay, perfect, thank you. I'll move to the next. Our next application was a request for rezoning from the RA 20R to commercial. The applicant's Forest Ridge Subdivision Incorporated. This property is a 29.8 acre property. The applicant is applying to rezone about a 16 acre portion of it. This is on NC 2487 in Cameron. There's a portion of the property that is already zoned commercial, is sort of outlined in red there in that southern section of the property. So this property consists of, there's three pieces here. They're sort of non-contiguous. It's broken up by Melody Lane as well as NC 2487 there. So it's just for the south section of the property. For utilities, there's a public water and sewer that is available. The annual average daily traffic count is 41,000 trips per day for NC 2487. On the zoning compatibility map there, you can see there's quite a bit of commercial in this area. This is also, just wanted to mention, in our Highway 87 corridor overlay district. So this is an area where, we are an area where we're growing a lot with non-residential growth. The land use compatibility map, this is also, it's located in our compact mixed use, which is fully compatible with the commercial zoning designation. There are photos of the site that have been provided for your review there. The staff did support the request to rezone this property based on the compatibility of the land use as well as the Highway 87 corridor overlay district and the availability of utilities. At the May 1st planning board, the planning board voted 4-1 to recommend approval of the request. The planning board did want to mention their concerns about traffic safety for the site. And there was one resident who spoke with concerns relating to traffic congestion, as well as potential stormwater runoff issues if the site were developed. And are there any questions for staff? Okay. All right, thank you. Right, well, moving right along, the next requested rezoning we had is from RA20R to commercial. The applicant is 54 Melody Partners LLC. This is in the same area as our previous request, just right across the way there on Melody Lane. This again is a request to rezone a portion of the property. There's a small part of that property that is already zoned commercial. The site is currently vacant and is being used as extra parking for the restaurant next door, the Twisted Grape. Their surrounding land uses consist of several commercial uses, including the restaurant. There's a gas station across the street, as well as single-family homes and undeveloped land. For utilities available for the site, there's public water and public sewer. And again, the annual average daily traffic count is 41,000 trips for NC 2487. The zoning compatibility map shows the amount of commercial that's already present here in this area. And again, looking at the land use classification as with our last request, there's compact mixed use land use. And that is fully compatible with a commercial zoning district. There's photos of the site provided there for your review.
Can you identify the restaurant that's there?
I'm so sorry.
Can you identify the restaurant that's there?
The Twisted Grape.
Twisted Grape.
Twisted.
So due to the compatibility of the land use, as well as the Highway Corridor Overlay District and the availability of utilities, staff was able to recommend approval. At the planning board hearing, the planning board voted 4-1 to recommend approval. The planning board did note traffic congestion and safety concerns. And we had a wind citizen spoke in opposition with concerns related to traffic safety and future stormwater runoff issues. Are there any questions for staff?
So you only had one person to vote against it on the planning board,
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
and their concerns was traffic. It's the traffic, right?
The concern sort of for the overall planning board, I believe, was traffic. I don't know that the planning board member who voted against stated any concerns necessarily.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm just glad that the traffic was discussed, because that is a very heavy traffic area, as well as the one before. I don't see anything happening to resolve the traffic here in Harnett County on either end, so. We went through the planning board. I'm gonna go forward, but I understand, I want you to understand, I understand what kind of problems it's gonna create. You're on the DOT. I know you are discussing all of this, right? Yeah. It's serious, really serious. And then too, got to take into consideration our water structure. That's the water structure.
Yes, ma'am. Infrastructure.
Well, I don't think we're gonna run out of water. Not right now, but I don't know what the future gonna hold. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any other questions for staff?
Nothing.
Any board members? Jay Sykes discussed the residential one. That's the fourth one on of our 4 items. This is kind of a tricky one for staff and planning board. This is a request to rezone about 141 acres from RA 40 to RA 30. It's on 401 North there in Spence Mill Road, which is a dead-end road, Hector's Creek Township. About 40 acres on the northern portion there is currently under development. There are about 20 acres that's proposed there. So we're looking at the southern portion there. It kind of looks like Florida. It's vacant. The eastern boundary area is a stream. As you can see, the part there that's been farmed. A complete soils analysis has not been done. Septic would be proposed, as sewer is not on that side of 401 or the railroad tracks. It is in the water supply watershed area. Of course, Spence Mill Road being a dead-end road, traffic count was unavailable. Looking at the surrounding zoning districts, it's all RA 40. Land use compatibility is majority is agricultural and rural residential, with a little bit there on the eastern portion for employment mixed use, which is the node around the 401 thoroughfare. Staff looked at this on a couple of different levels. Went back to 2017 when there was a request to rezone this same portion from 40 to 30. At that time, Board of Commissioners voted 4-1 to deny the request based off of surrounding impact to the community. Concerns were traffic congestion, particularly on Spence Mill Road and 401 intersection, railroad crossing safeties situations, also potential school impacts and overburdened school system in the area. So staff looked at those minutes and that decision. And then also the development along 401, that intersection that still remains the same. Staff recommended denial. Planning Board also took into account the 2017 thoughts. They did throw into mention that an elementary school is just about to open in this area. They also had traffic concern situations. Spence Mill 401 intersection predominantly. Also being the water supply watershed area, that usually leads to low density development. And then also looking at, more specifically, just looking at 40 to 30, putting your blinders on. 40 does not allow for manufactured homes, and it does not allow for multifamily projects, where 30 would. So just looking at the specific use table. Obviously, the county does not have conditional zoning as some towns do. So this applicant is Mattamy Homes. They would be the developer, the builder, maintain the HOA. They did talk about their project a little bit, talked about it being low density, but of course, we have to look at everything. So at the end of the day, staff recommended denial. Planning board did recommend approval 4-1. One citizen did speak in opposition, just with overall concerns for development in this area, as well as traffic and safety concerns. Again, the planning board talked about traffic and safety, but then they also talked about the inevitability of this potentially going to be developed residential at any rate. So that's kind of what their thought was on the approval recommendation.
How many houses, if one compared to the other, what's the difference?
So based off of the applicant's presentation to the planning board, they were looking at about 100 to 120. 100 at the current zoning, 120 at the proposed zoning.
The 20 house difference.
Yes, sir.
Still got to have a hearing on it next week, right?
Do what?
So we'll still have to have a hearing on it next week.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
The builder has been talking with the railroad about improvements, and there may be some grade improvement requirements. But they've been working with their engineers have been working with the railroad engineers, and they're willing to make whatever improvements are necessary. I'm glad that even though, according to this, staff had a concern about schools, 20 houses, you're talking 40 kids, probably, statistically. That's not going to impact our schools. 40 kids aren't. It's not like 400 kids or the number of kids that will be coming out of Serenity or some of these other huge developments. And like you said, Northwest Harnett is scheduled to open in the fall. It'll take care of a lot of these kids. There are other projects in the works that I can't discuss today that will help with some of the school situation. As far as the traffic goes, whether you build it, with 100 houses or 120 houses, you're still going to have congestion on 401. That's not going away. And 20 more houses is not going to have a major impact on that. I'd like to know why staff overruled the planning board. And number one. And number two, what's 2017 got to do with it?
Well, staff made their recommendation before planning board did. So actually planning board overruled staff on that. And in 2017, we just kind of looked at, looking at everything with our blinders on that we have to look at as far as complete 40 versus complete 30.
I would also add to 2017, well, anytime you have a case where you have the exact piece of land that's been looked at or been reviewed by staff at one point, and then more importantly by this board, and then also you get an opportunity to hear the public's concern. So not really, the board made a decision at that point based off what they heard from the public. And in 2017, this room had a lot more people here. There was a lot more people saying, hey, look, we have issues with schools, traffic, and all the other things that Jay mentioned in his staff report. So we have to go off the precedence that was set in 2017. So that's where we got our decision from. So I understand that some of the members of this board has changed since 2017, but what happened and what was said hasn't. The only thing that has changed as far as from 2017 is we've grown more. So we have a lot more growth in this area. So if the board at that time and the public felt at that time that we had issues with traffic and overcrowding, then we can only assume that that's actually become more because of the amount of growth that we've had since 2017 to today. So that's the mindset that we had to understand that we were for this in 2017, and this board overruled our decisions. So whenever that happens, we have to take into consideration, obviously, the thoughts that were given then. And like Jay said, we didn't overrule the planning board. We do our decision before the planning board even gets. The planning board overruled us. So it's a balancing act. And all the things that you mentioned, Mr. Weatherspoon, are certainly relevant. You know, there's going to be changes, there's going to be growth, and the schools, you know, there wasn't a school in 2017, and now there is a school. So, you know, there's things that you have to look at that way.
Well,
But that's where we were coming from.
well, I want to say I agree with the board. There are going to be changes, and we see changes every day from 2017. More houses. I am totally against you rezoning to put more houses on a site, because that does not do anything but create more traffic. And as far as the schools, we are right now capable of building schools to meet the need of the public right now. So we are putting ourselves in a bad position. And we are putting, I consider this with the traffic, we are putting a risk that our own citizens, for our own citizens. I know the area. I'm not sitting up here talking about something I don't know. I'm very familiar with the area. So I agree with the board. I don't think we should rezone it.
What's the, if this property stays RA 40, what's the maximum number of houses that this builder can build on this 140 acres?
I mean, it's hard to say because of like there's 47 acres above and they're only building 20 houses. They didn't change the zoning.
No, I'm talking about this 141 that he's asking for rezoning.
It's impossible for us to give you that number off the top of our heads like that, but what we can go off is what the developer is proposing. And that's what Jay said, 100 versus 120. Those are the logical, using all the logical, how they design their roads, how they design their open space, how they design everything, because there's multiple ways that you can build a subdivision. So we'll have to, just assuming that the way that they're designing things is the most economical way of doing so.
But
And let's just use, for today, let's use the 100 versus 120.
The builder is looking at 0.83 units per acre, is that correct?
Are they going conservation?
I think that's what the application said.
Well,
But unfortunately, you know, so that's the beauty of the commissioner's decision versus staff decision. You know, staff just has to look at 30 versus 40. You know, because theoretically they can rezone it and sell it for something totally different. So we can't, you know, staff can't base a decision on random information like that in an application.
Yeah, that's a good point.
this builder has done a tremendous amount of building and development in this county. I hear what you're saying, yes. If it's rezoned, he can do anything that's permitted in RA 30. But I think if he did that, he would severely limit his ability to do further development work in this county. Bottom line is, whether it's rezoned or not, guy's gonna build houses there.
They don't build houses.
He's gonna build houses. It's permitted as RA 40.
He gonna build houses, but he won't be able to build as many houses.
He'll be 20 short.
Well, 20 is a lot. 20 is a lot, that's what I feel. So, I know we can't start the process of putting it on the agenda, so we just have to vote on it.
Yeah, it'll be next week and we'll, is that the,
Right.
We have to have a public hearing anyway.
yeah, we gotta have a public hearing on it anyway, so.
In that vein, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, just again, remember on this case and all the others that you'll be considering next week, if you're, whatever way you end up voting, whoever makes the motions and seconds, be able to have a basis for, instead of just voting straight up and down, which you have a tendency to do sometimes, try to have discussion as to a basis for your motion to approve or deny using your worksheet that's at the end of it.
Sure.
Right.
Be sure to do that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for staff? Having hearing none, let's move on to item number 9. Discuss proposed fiscal policy updates. It's all finished.
Good morning. More riveting information. So you have before you, and it actually starts on page 140 of the PDF, the county's fiscal policy. I want to talk to you today about amending a section of our fiscal policy that is actually on page 140. Excuse me, it's not 140, but it's the part for cash management and investment processes. So basically, when this policy was written or developed back in 2012, we used a standard investment type policy template that has served us well, and that is where you allow, it's basically a restatement of the General Statute 159, which as the finance officer gives me the authority to invest idle funds of the county in certain investment instruments, and those are restricted. So, but with the economy, interest rates being as they are, we now are in a position, and I know over when we did the budget retreat, we talked about how over the last 10 years, through the adoption of this policy and a few amendments, we have been able through money management such as our CIP plan, our capital planning, our forecasting, our new budget process, we have been able to build our reserves that we are using to, fund school construction, fund, personnel changes, additional personnel to meet the services of our county. But through that management, we also have additional funds that we can now turn around and invest to create more income to fund other projects and needs of the county citizens. And so as the interest rate environment has changed significantly since the pandemic, it is becoming restrictive to me as a finance officer to be able to invest your money. So I will not read through these, but what I did do is I prepared this. It's actually on 2 pages. And some of the language I have struck through because it's not really needed, and I'll just talk about the points that I would like for you to consider changing. So item 2, it talks about 1/2 of the appropriations to non-county agencies, which that's really an immaterial quote for this fiscal policy, and to non-debt supported capital outlays can be encumbered prior to December 31st. Well, that's not really conducive to our CIP plan and how we actually budget and spend our funds. And it's really I would use the word immaterial because it's really insignificant, really immaterial. So I just would request that you strike through that. And then, so that renumbers some. And then number 5, where it talks about cash flows being forecasted in investments, I would like to strike that because I've moved that language down to the next paragraph that discusses liquidity. I think that's a much better placement of that request. And so at one point, it was no less than 20% of the available funds for investments would be maintained in liquid investments at any one point in time. The way our accounts are set up now, we have our primary fund is with PNC. That's the one, like our major bank account that we write checks. That's where the bulk of our revenue comes in. And then we have invested funds with North Carolina Capital Management. I have access to those funds I can wire them down today if I need to. So it's just like being at a bank. So because the environment has changed, the banking industry has changed, and the way it allows us to manage. Because prior, you would have several days or even months before or weeks before you could draw down some instruments. These are not like that. So that has given us a much better flexibility. So, and in the meantime, as your finance officer, I'm constantly looking at the various funds. I'm forecasting your revenues, forecasting your expenditures. Um, Lisa and I work together very closely to understand how these funds are coming in, how we project them, how we develop our budget. Everything revolves around when we're going to. It's kind of like when's our next paycheck come due. We kind of do the same thing. So I'm always looking at the cash flow analysis. So, for example, in the general fund, the primary number one revenue source for that general fund, as you know, are your tax collections. Bills are sent out in September. Bills are past due by January. So between September and January, the county receives, for most part, the bulk of your county revenue. So, for example, for your tax revenue this year, we've collected $69.7 million. So, over the course of about 4 or 5 months, you've collected $69 million, which is a lot, and that's our primary funding source. So, what happens is that is the money that we primarily have to write checks, pay bills, pay debt, do our transfers. That's our primary source of income. Second after that comes our sales tax, which we're getting that 1/12 along. But what I'm trying to do is, when we have that kind of cash, we're not going to spend all of that overnight. So that's the kind of cash where I go out and I invest it. And with interest rates the way they are now, we're earning quite a significant amount of money, which is, as I stated previously, allows us to spend more money. Well, excuse me, meet the needs of the citizens. I misspoke. So anyway, that's just to give you an idea. And then as the ladder extends out, I invest less of long term. So that's what that one means. And then maturity. Investments will mature in no more than 36 months. I would like for you to request looking at that over 60 months. So right now, what we're looking at is what's hurting us is that inverted yield curve. So right now, I can invest short term a lot better than long term. But with the interest rates the way they have been over the last, previous months, I could go out for long term, and that's where if I'm able to go out for a long term, then I can kind of hedge us against those falling interest rates. So I can buy an investment for, let's say, 5 or 6%. So if the interest rates do drop, I do have that kind of insulation and security, and that allows us to again project capital planning. Um, Move on down. Custody will stay the same as far as safekeeping. Everything is held in the name of the county. And then authorized investments. This is actually just a restatement of the General Statute 159. It does not allow us, the county, or I as your finance officer, to invest any county funds in anything that's less than AAA rated. And so it's very specific. So as far as what I do invest in, I invest in federal securities such as Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, the Farmers Home Loan, Farmers Federal Farm Credit, and those are all ones that they're federal government, so they're very safe. As far as commercial paper is rated a lot differently, and I'm not allowed to invest in anything that's less than A1, P1, or F1. So again, very strict oversight from North Carolina. And again, I know we've mentioned it in prior sessions, but one of the reasons when we go out to issue debt, our bonds usually sell very quickly because North Carolina, because of the oversight of the local government commission, state treasurer, and our statutes, and the responsibility of the board, our bonds are highly sought after. And that's why I think the last time we went out, we issued 43 million in debt, and I think we received about 13 million in premium. So, we asked for 43, we got, 13 million. So that's amazing statement, and that's a huge reflection, a positive reflection on local governments as well. The second to the last one, diversification. Previously, 10% of our funds were invested in commercial paper. I would like to request that you increase that to 25%. again, right now, I only have about 6.5% of the investment portfolio in commercial paper, and that's just short-term liabilities of corporations. And again, those are corporations that are rated very high, so the chance of any type of risk is very low. And then allocations, we just cleaned up the language to change it from finance director to finance officer. And again, I allocate that interest income over various funds that have invested in that portfolio itself. So just to give you an idea right now of what we're looking at for interest income. For the first 6 months, for the first 9 months of fiscal year 2022, the county earned $37,416 in the general fund of interest income. Compare that to $3.5 million for this year. So I've been able to take advantage of a lot of the interest rates, but that again is where, when we talk about money management and the policies and procedures that you've put in place, that has allowed us to invest that money, to have that money on hand. But we are still meeting our payroll, our debt obligations, our school obligations, and everything else. So I apologize if that went a little fast, but it's a lot to cover. But for the most part, I just need you to consider changing this policy to give me the ability that'll give me a lot more flexibility in the funds.
What's on the agenda?
On the agenda. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All righty, Mr. Snow, let's talk about proposed real estate.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have a proposal that has been made to the county by Sarupa Kazduzu of Cary, North Carolina. She and her son are developers in Orange and Durham counties, and they're making a foray, or want to make a foray, into Harnett County as far as their development efforts. The county owns a piece of property on Lawrence Road, 13 acres. If you'll turn to page 149 of your handouts, you'll see a GIS half-sheet map of the subject property with some background information. County has owned this property since 1995, when they conducted a tax foreclosure on the property and bought in at the foreclosure. So it's been sitting in the county coffers and inventories since 1995, drawing no income whatsoever as far as tax proceeds are concerned. Ms. Gaduzzo has made an offer through her realtor. Initially, when she called the county, she talked to Brent. Brent turned this thing over to me, and they offered $40,000, and I told them they were wasting their time. I did not think the commissioners would even consider that. Advised them that obviously you have a fiduciary responsibility on behalf of the taxpayers of the county when we sell property to get at least fair market value for it. The reval on this property shows a value of $78,880. It's a fully wooded tract. It's got a utility easement. You can barely see it there on the aerial view. A utility easement going right through it, and then there's a creek going right through it. The reason Ms. Kaduzu is interested in this property, she has contracts pending right now. If you turn to page 150 of your handouts, this is a outside blow-up of exactly where this property is located. On that blow-up, you'll see a pink or red area, which is composed of 53 acres. She has a contract pending on that tract there. And then to the right of that, you'll see a mobile home park, which is the Broadway Farms Mobile Home Park, if you're familiar with that. She also has a contract on that 6-acre tract. Her intent, and this information I'm just garnered from her realtor, her intent and her son's intent is to develop that property into single-family housing. And obviously, this 13-acre tract offers an alternative location for access to a public road, being Lawrence Road, where they might bring in water and access to another point as opposed to going through the mobile home park area. My understanding is, as far as their game plan, they intend to do away with the mobile home park eventually, before they would develop the entire 53 plus 6-acre tract, plus hopefully the 13 acres as far as they're concerned. So basically what they have made a proposal pursuant to the statutory process that you're familiar with, whereby a third party will make a proposal to buy the property. We advertise that proposal, garner any upset bids, drive the price up as high as we can get it, and then if the commissioners feel like they still wanted to go through with the deal at that point, they can go through it with it and issue a special warranty deed for the subject property. So what's before you is just a packet there. You'll see the modified written offer from the realtor. As part of this, you'll see a copy of the deed where the county got the property back in 1995. And you'll see a proposed, I think, page 151 is a proposed resolution whereby you, as the commissioners, in a voting session, albeit next week, would accept her offer subject to the upset bid process. So the question is whether do you want to put this on your consent agenda for next week? And let me say this, the offer in negotiating with them, that the offer was not only to bring it up to the tax value pursuant to the reval, but also to pay for any advertising costs, so the county would not be out that also.
Is it the pleasure of the board to put it on for further discussion or on the consent agenda?
Item 2, or paragraph 2, there's an error in the amount that's typed
Yeah,
there.
that has typos all through it. I apologize for that, but that's already been corrected. I have that ready at hand up. Error there, and Sarupa's name is misspelled also, but those have been corrected. My apologies.
Question.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
We put it on the agenda, that means that we're considering to accept her proposal, right?
What you're doing, if you put this resolution on the agenda, is you're accepting their proposal subject to the upset bid process.
No.
If we put it on for further discussion, then it's just that. And then we can make a decision next week. Is that right?
Correct.
It's up to y'all.
Well, I'll put it on for further discussion, but but it's totally up to the body.
Keep in mind the final decision, when you look at the statute, the last sentence of the statute is, once you go through the entire process, the county commissioners can withdraw a decision to sell it anytime you want to. So just because you say, well, we accept your offer and we'll see how the bidding process goes, if it doesn't go like you want, you can always pull out.
Further discussion. I think that was what Barbara had suggested, that was what Brooks was
I'm
saying.
fine with consent agenda, but
Yeah, I'm okay with the consent agenda.
Okay.
All right, if we're gonna have further discussion, then we need to put it off to the next work session.
I think that we should have further discussion. I'm just one.
Lou, what are you, discussion or consent agenda?
If we wanna put it off till the next work session for further discussion, that's fine. Otherwise, put it on the consent agenda.
whichever, whatever the.
Let me add this for what it's worth, and I'm not pushing one way or the other, just so you'll have all the information before you make your decision. Their contracts on these other 2 tracks are for closings in June, and whether they actually go through those might be tempered by what y'all decide to do here. So if you put it off for further discussion in the next work session, talk about June, you might mess with their development plans, which is fine. I mean, you're not here to satisfy them, but I just want to make you aware of that situation.
So let me ask one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Putting on the agenda means we have to discuss it here and then make a decision whether we accept the offer or not. Is that not true?
Yes, if you put it on the agenda, open agenda, it will be open for further discussion and your decision, whatever you want to do. If you put it on consent,
Well, that's fine.
Do it that way. Put it on the open agenda, and that way it's further discussion.
It's a separate item.
Yeah, separate items, what I was trying to. That way everybody can discuss it a little bit.
that'd be fine. And I'll be on vacation next week, so Chris will be here to do it.
We'll give him a proper workout.
We'll do it. Thank you.
Enjoy your vacation.
Okay, applications for boards and committees. It looks like the first one that's highlighted here is Dr. Lori Langdon for the Health Board.
Mr. Chairman, I will say that I did have a conversation with Mr. John Rouse regarding these recommendations that is coming from him. I think you had talked with Ms. Langdon. I believe Mr. Washington, Dr. Washington is fine with moving to fill the position to be vacated by Ms. Adams, who has asked not to be reappointed. So I'm in support of all of these changes recommended by Mr. Rouse.
Okay, Lou? All right, put those on the consent agenda for next week. The next one I have highlighted here is the Johnston Lee Harnett Community Action. Looks like former Commissioner Gordon Springle has asked to be considered for that appointment. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Vice Chairman, I will say that I did call Mr. Springle last week, I believe, and had a conversation with him, and I would recommend his appointment to this board. He has served this board in the past. He has served with Ms. McCoy and has been a loyal member of that board, I believe, during his time of service, so I would recommend his approval.
Okay. Hearing no objection, we'll put that on the consent agenda for next week. All right, county manager's report.
On behalf of the county manager, we don't have anything else to add this week.
Okay. Mr. Snow, do you have any anticipation of a closed session?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
All right, having that, hearing nothing, any other business come before this board, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's it.